Following public service announcement is being brought to you part by the good folks that support the dope. It's told by D2G and Red Young. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now in tune with something like a phenomenon. It's food for thought for those starving through Ramadan. Nothing less than the best, that's what you rockin' with. So take notes on this newness, cause you'll be jockin' in. Precious of the bunch, plenty game that we put you on. Fashion, music, we give it to the goodest gone. Keeping up with the time, so you'll be in the know. Nothing but exclusives, heads up on who's next to blow. It's only dopeness we give to the masses. I promise guaranteed, ain't no pushing the whackness. So say your theatrics for plays if you've been a hater. Plus the lovely Carly Brown's your facilitator. Lead the water when we bring that fire. Here's the industry biz #1 supplier. Boy, them other stations don't want no smoke. Keep your ears tuned in and support the dope. Yo, looking at my clock and it's about that time. Hey, 7:30 Central when we hit online. Hey, and we coming to you live from the ghost. So tell your people settle in and support the dope. Yo, looking at my clock and it's about that time. Hey, 7:30 Central when we hit online. Hey, and we coming to you live from the ghost. So tell your people settle in and support the dope for sure.
You are now tuned in to Support the Dope Radio, which is designed to give a platform to the best, most talented, and dopest artists in the city of Chicago and equip them with the power to tell their own story in their own words. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2017, and this is Season 3, Episode 7. I am your host, your homegirl CB, aka CB Radio, if you didn't know. And if you're tuning in live, thank you, and thank you for your patience, because we just had a little mishap, a little technical glitch when we tried to air the first time. So if you're just now tuning in, no, you're not daydreaming, you're, you're not sleepwalking. It is a little past 7:30, but we are here for the next hour. So thank you for tuning in. If you are tuning in live via the Spreaker app or Spreaker.com, feel free to jump in and leave your comments or questions for tonight's guest using the chat feature. So if you were tuned in the first time, I did have an issue. The Spreaker interface uses Skype, and Skype has a new version that was updated on my computer, and it knocked out all my preferences, which disconnected Spreaker from Skype, and you weren't able to hear tonight's guest. So it is very important to me that, you know, our guests have a fair and complete opportunity to share their story and have a good quality interview. So our guest was patient enough and gracious enough to say, okay, you know, let's start again. So we are going to start over. Devil, you are not going to try me today, okay? I see what you're trying to do, but it's not going to work because we're a little bit smarter than that, and we have a little bit more faith in that. So this just means it's going to be even more fun. It's going to be even better. You're in for a very good show and a lot of great music. So I have no problem, you know, starting things over so that things are done in decency and in order. Amen. So,
Amen.
About that, now that that's out of the way, tonight's guest is a songwriter. She's a singer, a spoken word artist, a worship leader, an actress, and the list just keeps growing. And from what I've heard somewhere, and I'll let her clarify, that she's a spreader of holy mischief. Okay, so we're going to find out what that means too sometime during this hour. And she is a native of the south side of Chicago, so she is your homegirl from the south side.
Yes.
She is an inspiring voice for the voiceless, a passionate wordsmith spewing truth and inspiration, singing songs of life and love motivated by her personal experiences and undergirded by her Christian beliefs. Sharon has been a part of the worship team at Willow Creek Community Church in Barrington, Illinois for several years, has contributed songs and words of hope before thousands at liturgical and corporate events, youth conferences, including the popular CHIC, which stands for Covenant High in Christ, in small clubs and intimate settings all over the country, at the Angola Prison in Angola, Louisiana, and even entertained millions while a participant on Season 10 of America's Got Talent, where she received the coveted Golden Buzzer. Ooh. at her first televised audition and was chosen by America to compete in the semifinals. She says that we are all walking art. She has stated that she fuses her love of fashion and music into a whimsical symmetry of sound and visual aesthetic. She also lends her talents to the popular Chicago-based band Pocket Radio, which blends soul, hip-hop, funk, and fusion. So, without further ado, and for the second time around, please welcome tonight's guest, Miss Lovely, Beautiful, Patient, and Gracious, Sharon Irving.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'll say it again. That was the kindest, most honoring introduction I've ever had.
No,
so,
well, it was all true and all about you. So good. So we're gonna hang out tonight for the next hour or so and chat with Miss Sharon. And we have a lot of good songs to play of hers today. I get excited when artists bring a lot of music because that's what we're here for. So we're gonna take our time and get to know Sharon a little bit and talk about what she has coming up. She's a special announcement for you guys too. So make sure you guys are tuning in. If you have any burning questions or you'd like to leave your comment about how much you love Sharon, please feel free to do so using the chat feature, as I said at the beginning of the show, on Spreaker. So we will be checking that periodically through the show for any questions or comments that you guys might have. So let's get started then, shall we?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning, all the way back into time, and tell everybody, what it was like growing up for you and how you got your start in music.
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much. This is so exciting.
Of course.
I was telling you before we got on, I love interviews, so this is fun for me, the nerd in me.
Yay.
So we'll see how I do on the other side.
I'm sure you'll do great.
Yeah.
You're already off to a good start.
Yes, right. Satan ain't got no power. We're gonna get
nothing here.
Right. So, I'm born and raised South Side. Shout out to my city of Chicago. This is home, and I'm actually coming to you live from the South Side right now. Shout out to my mom. I'm in my mom's crib right now, hanging out with her.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mama. So this is home. This is where it all started. I come from a musical family. I come from a family of expression and art and soul and true artists. And when I say true artists, my dad is a jazz musician, and he's been doing music all his life and taught himself how to play, music directed for Miles Davis. And I've always just admired his commitment to the art and the love and just doing it out of a pure love for it and making something out of nothing. And my mom, who grew up singing in the church, in her father's church, my grandfather, rest in peace, he was a Baptist preacher and marched with Dr. King and was an activist here in Chicago. And so just a lot of rich history around music and activism. But growing up, I didn't really realize all of these great things that all these things that really matter in terms of the legacy. I just knew that, my parents were hardworking, and my brother and I grew up on the South Side, and when my parents got divorced, we moved in with my grandmother, and my grandmother pretty much helped raise us, so she was a second mother to me and my brother, and my mother worked and was a single mom, and my dad traveled, and we got to see him. He lived in Chicago, but just a very unique upbringing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It wasn't your typical traditional upbringing, but it's my story. And the house that I grew up in, where my grandmother raised us, was actually the house that my mother grew up in, and it's on Bennett Ave, and that's where the title of my album comes from. Bennett Ave is the street that I grew up on, and the home that really, I think, where I really found my voice. It was a little intimidating at first because we were young. You know, my brother and I came in, and we were living in an apartment, a small apartment, and then we moved into this home that was like a blast from the past, like, you know, stained glass windows, vintage carpet, you know, the printed wallpaper from the 70s. Like, it was just this really, like, a home filled with character. But at the time, it was a little like, what is going on? And but it became an escape place for me, and a place where I began to explore my voice and my music. And honestly, you know, growing up in the inner city, and then going through the separation and the divorce, like, you know, at the time I didn't realize, like, I was processing all these things, but I knew that, like, music was my escape. It was my outlet. It was my therapy. And even in school, my teachers would comment on my report card, you know, she's a sweetheart. She's so kind, but she doesn't really pay attention because she's always making up songs, and she's always you know,
if only they knew.
If only they knew. You know, I just didn't want to fit into the box. No, but it's just, even before, and I say that to say, like, yeah, my mom and my dad, you know, they're both musical people, but before I even knew that they were musical people, I was, you know, I was making up songs and melodies and things, and my dad would always have they didn't have iPhones back then. I'm an 80s baby, so he always had the, you know, the camcorder or whatever out, and so I just capturing me in the zone, you know, whether it was make-believe, coming up with full-on routines and stuff. So, yeah, I just always found my escape in music. And then, you know, spiritually, I always had this sense that there was something bigger, like a driving force surrounding me and pouring these ideas into me. And, you know, I remember the first time I sang in church, I was terrified because I honestly wasn't a ham. I didn't always feel comfortable, you know, speaking in front of people, and was very shy and a little timid. And they had to force me to step out. And, you know, I did it afraid. And, you know, from there I started doing more theater and acting and just all of these different things under the umbrella of the arts. And, you know, it's just, and then went on to high school. And, you know, I don't think I would have made it through high school, through the Chicago public school system without music, without being in the choir. You know, my friends and I were constantly singing that, you know, our song. And shout out to Lincoln Park High School, where I still, you know, some of my lifelong friends come out of that space. And then, you know, college, I was really able to kind of find a purpose with the music, because I think it's one thing to sing, you know, it's one thing to say, I love music and I love, you know, I want to be a rapper, I want to be a singer, but it became clear to me that this isn't just for me, like this isn't like a gift just for me to keep to myself, like this is something that I have to give back to the world. And one of my most favorite professors in in college, Dr. Sims, shout out to North Park University, he taught an Africana Studies course and just talked about, you know, racial reconciliation and injustice and just systematic oppression and all of these things that I had experienced growing up in Chicago, but I didn't really have language for it. And I began to realize that, wow, music and art, they can be a form of resistance. Like my music and my art can be a weapon of peace, of healing, and just a resistance against injustice. And so I realized that I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless and a voice with the voiceless. And I began to write poems and songs that were fueled by the pain and the injustice that I had experienced and witnessed in the city of Chicago. And so, I mean, I write about everything from love to life to growing pains, but I definitely have a special place for issues around injustice. And I really think that, you know, the pain of my city has fueled that. And I'm really grateful for education. And I think that, it's important for me as a girl of the South Side. I'm very proud of that, and and it's because I know how important it is for young girls like myself to see, women that look like them, that are living their dreams,